I was painting this mural, getting paid for it, and some dude drives up to me and offers me to teach me how to tattoo because he was familiar with the murals and the art that I had done in the city. At the time, I didn't have any tattoos, and so I figured it'd be another like just a blue collar job for me to have, and I had no understanding of tattooing. And then the more I learned about tattooing, the more I fell in love with it, the more I learned about the history and just how nuanced and how many layers there are to the process of tattooing and how beautiful it was. And from then on, it just became my favorite medium. Sure, I mean, there's a lot of books you could look up and find about the history of tattooing, but basically it it's finding old imagery and reinterpreting that, or basically bringing it back to life. It's basically like finding an old car and restoring that car in a sense. If you find an old design that maybe got tattooed in the 1920s, for instance, and maybe no one has gotten that same image tattooed since then. And it was a design that they decided where to put the black and how to do the line work and how to make it the most efficient to be on someone's body and last for the rest of their life. And so discovering some of these images and thinking, oh, wow, this would be cool if someone in this time wore that same picture. And then it becomes a connection between the person that's wearing the tattoo now and the person that got it tattooed 100 years ago. And so there's something very beautiful about that. And me being the middleman and being able to like give new life to this image, to this beautiful picture. And now someone else is wearing it, you know, and then now this story of this tattoo is 100 years old. And so there's something very beautiful about that. And graffiti is painting something illegally. And so you basically try to find something that's interesting to you that you think would look interesting the next day, whether it's a freeway wall or an abandoned building, or everyone has their own approach to what that means to them. But it's basically when you change the visual landscape illegally, and then it's for someone to run into and see, and it's kind of like communication between other graffiti writers.
My parents had a portrait studio in our home, so I grew up with photographers. I grew up watching them in the studio, watching them in the darkroom, watching them bring the prints to magic in the developer. And they taught me a lot about lighting and composition. What they didn't teach me, however, was that I was not a studio type person. I love to be outdoors. And so after I became an adult, I started taking photographs outdoors and eventually worked as a teacher for a very long time. And then after I retired from that, I started actually doing this as a business about 10 years ago. So I get to come to beautiful parks and talk about my work with people and help them purchase things that they love to be able to decorate their homes with. So I started selling my work in small farmers markets because I just wanted to get a sense of, do people even like what I do? And because I knew I love it, and I love taking photographs, and I love editing them and deciding on composition and how I want them to look. But I needed to find out if people liked them. And I was successful right away in the farmers market area. And then I started looking for other venues. And I heard about this particular show that we do in Balboa Park. It's we have a show every other weekend, so 2 weekends a month. It's a beautiful park. We have lots of people who come by. It's around the city. The C3 Gallery in Coronado has shown my work. I show in the La Jolla Community Center as well.
So bonjour, welcome to my art. Okay, I started like maybe 15 years ago, and I was a pure disaster. So if I can do it, you can paint too, okay? Don't be afraid. Then you need to know that art is expensive. So one time I went to frame one of my little piece, and I was very fortunate because the framer bought my piece. So it was like, oh, maybe I can make some money. And I started with association. And the first was at the Spanish Village. And then I came to this association, San Diego County Art Mart Association. We are very fortunate because we can show all the year round. The city of San Diego gives us the authorization. So we have permits. Don't forget, when you are an artist, you need authorization. It's like a regular business. You need to pay your taxes. And I am very fortunate because I have my art everywhere in the world, in China, in Africa, in Europe, and in San Diego too. So good luck to you, and I hope you will all enjoy painting and do other craft or art. This association started over 50, 60 years ago. It was like in the 60s. We were part of another organization. We was at the Spanish Village. It was with Gallery 23 or Southwestern Art Association. So if you wanted to show in the park, you needed to be a member of this other association. And then we decided to split in two associations. So we opened San Diego County Art Mart Association, who was only for fine art artists. And little by little, over the years, we decided to open that to crafter and other type of art. The city, we are regulated by the city of San Diego. So we are very serious in our art. We need to be juried by the association. You need to present 5 of your pieces, and we are going to accept your work or not. And once you are here, welcome to the group. And you can show once or twice a month. You do what you want. You decide. You are the boss.
So I was 9 years old when I got my first award at school. It was a competition. I was in third grade, and that was fantastic because first place. And then I debated what to do, if I should pursue architecture or art. So I thought, why have to? I don't have to choose. So I'm an architect for 42 years, and I've been painting all along since I was a kid. Yeah, I've been doing architecture full time, and also, my art. I own 3 galleries, art galleries. One in Buenos Aires when I was living there. One in Bogota, and the other one in Coconut Grove near Miami. So I've been, doing both things all the time. I presented my work and I was accepted. So I do this at least once a month. Yeah, I'm also a photographer and I love nature and, of course, cities. So when I visit different places that I love, I want to capture them in either watercolors like these ones, or acrylics or oil paintings. And I love also portraits. I've been doing a lot of portraits for family and commercially. So I love all techniques. I can do pastels and all this. I even do sculpture in bronze. Yeah. So I love everything. And I never study art. I just learned by doing it.
Hi, I'm Denise Rudy. I started doing art when I was a little girl, so I entered art competitions when I was in kindergarten and first grade and third grade, and I won ribbons. And all through high school, I was always in the art room. I took my study halls in the art room, and I was just mad about art, and I wanted to become an art teacher. It's all I ever wanted to do. So when I graduated from high school, I enrolled in Ohio University with the intention to teach art in high school. And about halfway through my second year, the counselor at the college told me that I would never get a job teaching art, that all those programs got cut first, and that I should become a graphic designer. So I switched into graphic design. I barely made it through the semester. I dropped out. and left all my art supplies in my dorm room, and I didn't pick up art again until about 16 months ago. And about 16 months ago, I took a collage class down in Key West, Florida, and I fell in love with collage. So I started doing collage art, and I've produced all these paintings since then. And let me go back a second. I did get involved with expressive art, which is much more of a healing modality art, but it isn't art like this. So I did do some of that for about 4 years, and I taught a class based on the book The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. But this was mostly for non-artist people. And I kind of considered myself not really an artist then, because I wasn't really doing art that was, frameable. It was just expression. And then I saw a picture, a photograph of some ballet slippers on the internet. And I thought, I think I'm just going to tear up a bunch of paper and recreate those ballet slippers on a piece of art. So I did. So I produced this piece that looked kind of like this. This is the second one that I did. I thought it was amazing. So I just started finding photographs that I liked and altering them in my mind, and I started drawing again, and I started producing these types of art out of these torn scraps. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I mean, I just was kind of making it up. And then I ran across Derek Gores, who's a pretty famous American collage artist. And I started following him a little bit and watched some of his videos and contacted him. He was amazingly gracious and told me what supplies to buy. And I started looking through my own photographs and using myself as a model for some of these pictures. And then I just built a studio in my backyard from a tough shed. And then I was on the wait list here at Liberty Station. And right when I got my tough shed done, they called me saying a studio was open in Liberty Station. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just built this studio in my backyard. But I had this intuition that I should be at Liberty Station. So I mulled over whether I should spend that extra money per month and decided to go ahead and take a lease in this studio. So now I have both studios, and I call the one at home my working studio. I mean, I make a giant mess with paper everywhere. And this is sort of my neat studio where I display my art and I do finishing and starting of projects, and I collaborate with the other artists in the area, and I love it. I've entered quite a few competitions and exhibits, and so I've had my art in quite a few different venues, like an art walk event in Costa Mesa, and I've been in galleries. I'm in a gallery right now in Descanso Gardens. I'm in a gallery right now, a Woodward Contemporary Gallery. I had a meeting a couple nights ago at the Oceanside Art Museum where this piece was critiqued by some art dealers and art gallery owners. I have a website. I have a lot of people that come through this space too. So if I see someone out in the hall, and I can see them kind of wanting to look in, I invite them in, and I let them see everything that I'm doing. And right now, I'm just excited for people to see my art. And so what the future brings is what the future brings. But I have big plans for getting this art out to the community so that people can see what I'm doing. And I only do women. So I do these portraits of women, and I develop an internal relationship with these different people. And I have a story about them. So I become very attached to these women that I'm doing. And I have little notes about who they are and what they're doing. And it's the entire storytelling of it mixed with the art that excites me. Who is this woman and what is she doing? Like this piece is called Home. The title kind of says it. Her house just got bombed and she doesn't have a home anymore. You know, she just doesn't have a home anymore, and she doesn't care about politics or any of that. She just wants to go home. Or like this lady, she's a flapper from the 1920s, and that look she has is this look that says, I'm going out in these clothes, and I don't care whether you like it or not, this is what I'm doing. Because at the time, this was radical for women to dress like this. You know, they're coming right out of the Victorian dress. Or like this lady, she's decided she's just going to have flowers for hair, and she doesn't care what anybody thinks. So they all have this story, and I think that's why I am so in love with them.
My name is Lisa Bryson. I'm from San Diego, California, and art has always been in my life, and my mother is an artist, and we have artisans in our family, and so it was just something that I fell into naturally. I first worked in graphite and black and white only, and then I went into undergrad studies and was introduced into painting at that point. I was very afraid of painting, didn't have the control that I did with graphite, but I was determined to learn the media, and I have been working as a painter for approximately 20 years now. I mostly display here, but I do exhibit. I have exhibited internationally, nationally, and locally. I've also been published in magazines, so I try to reach out in as many areas as I can, but I also like to draw people into my studio space and into my gallery space. So I studied art, so I started out first at Arizona State for my BFA, and then I went on to Boston, Massachusetts to do my studies in art education, and then I completed my MFA in Massachusetts as well at UMass Dartmouth. So through my studies, through the MFA program, I was introduced to different artists that are working professionally now, and I was really impressed with some of their styles. And so I wanted to, first, when we're learning, we mimic what we see. But I didn't want to be a fan of what they do. I wanted to find my own voice. So I branched out from what they were doing. And I just wanted this representational work, but to be abstracted so that we don't just see the figure or just see the face, but we see the psychology below it. Also, I like to capture the everyday life events that happen, but kind of give them grandeur. So it's usually people I meet, people that just come into my studio, or sometimes I'm in a doctor's office and I will see people and I'm just interested in what they are doing in their space, and so I take pictures of them, and so I just use them as studies, and I work from photographs, and I also ask people to come in and sit for me, and then I photograph them. We have a photograph session, and then I work from those photographs. So I call it abstracted realism. Well, the actual technique took a lot of practice, a lot of lost paintings, as far as just making junk, just stuff that you wouldn't want to show anybody, and it was just practice, practice, practice. It starts out sometimes from a very traditional image of a person that I've painted, a standard photograph into a standard portrait, but then I go in and I just obliterate it. I break it up, I dissolve it, and then I bring it all back together. So there's this sense of energy of that person coming apart and then regrouping and coming back together again. Well, I think every artist has a sense of grandeur of where they want to be in the future. I would love to have my work in MoMA, things like that. But as far as reality, this is my reality. I paint, I create, and then if it opens doors, fabulous. If it's just my space and it's my voice, then that's what it will be. I don't have a 5-year, 10-year plan. I don't think a lot of artists, at least I don't think a lot of artists that I've met really have that kind of plan. We live in the moment. It's expression. It's and also it's a lot of thought and a lot of our inner being that's just coming out into this space. And so the idea of moving or creating another space, to me, it just doesn't compute. I just want to stay here and create, but branch out in a way that I'm known around the world. That's the grandeur.
My name is Jeffrey Gonzalez, and I am from Phoenix, Arizona. What started my interest in dancing was my little sister. She was an exceptional young student as a dancer, and I was always ushered to her ballet recitals, her dance recitals when I was very young. And her being younger than me always made it difficult because, you know, as an older brother, you don't really want to hang out at your younger sister's recitals. But I ended up getting dragged to a few of them, and as I saw a few of those dance recitals, I thought to myself how interesting it was to see boys up on stage doing some interesting things, and I thought I could do that. My first dance performance this would have been 2000 or the year 2000, was a Backstreet Boys dance that was kind of a very popular pop song of the day that made it a little bit more commercial for a boy dancer to be on stage. I was originally thinking that I was going to end up as a New York City dancer. As most dancers do when they're training in Arizona, you think about the East Coast as being the mecca of where all of the dance energy is. When I went to the University of Arizona as a dance major, I never expected that I would move to California. But one of my good friends from the university ended up getting a job at the City Ballet of San Diego. And when I left the university, I was looking for any work that I could get, and I contacted her, and she told me that she was working in San Diego and that there were 2 injuries to dancers that they had faced in their company. And that led me to contact their dance director and find out if there was a chance for me to audition here in San Diego. No one really has a control over their dance career. As a dancer, you're only a vessel of somebody else's energy that they want to put into you. I had a hard time feeling that somebody telling me that I needed to do something was really in the best interest of me, which, you know, is not conducive for an environment in which you really need to be very respectful for what people are telling you above you. So I ended up leaving and going to Europe and existing in a company that was much more individually based. It was much more like you were the star of what you represented and everybody else there was the star of what they represented. So we were one kind of coalition or one collaborative group, where in a ballet company traditionally it's more the director and then the dancers. After I came back from my European tour, I realized that there's just some things that go a certain way when you're in the United States when it comes to dancing. And it took me a while to slow down my pace and to take my time in understanding how I fit into a certain situation for dance. And that was a big part of my learning and understanding of growth. After I got back from tour, I came back and there was an opportunity for me to do Romeo and Juliet. And Romeo and Juliet was my director Betsy Wistrich's first time choreographing it, and she actually allowed me to choreograph part of the piece itself as the fight scene, something I was really interested in choreographing. So I started to realize that there was a flow to creation that could be also where I could instill some of my talents. And because of that, it felt more harmonious as far as my existence in the company, being somebody that could create and also perform on stage. But I always remember being somebody that could just make it, that could see the steps and what could exist with the music cohesively and in a very good way. It's taken me time and training to make sure that that was true, but even at a very early age, I always had a gut instinct when it came to being able to move to music. And when I was given that opportunity in Betsy's Romeo and Juliet to do the fight scenes, it just kind of confirmed that I was confident enough to be able to tell people movements that they could do that could shine in performances. You know, I think when it comes to creating something, I always have in mind my father. And when it comes to him, I always think of what would make him excited. What would make this person think, wow, I spent money, or I spent my time and money in coming to a performance of something, and I would want them to walk away thinking that it was designed for them. You know, I always felt that it's important to make sure that the person that is least most valuable to you in the audience feels respected with the work. That there's always going to be somebody that is a diehard dance fan that is going to respect everything that the artists do on stage. But there's always going to be one naysayer that's also back in the audience that thinks, why is this worth money? Why is this worth my time? And when I create something, I always think of that person first. That's my audience. Because that's what I was before I came to dance. I was a person that thought, how useless is this? And when it transcended me into being somebody that does it for a living and has spent 20 years, 23, 25 years now doing this for a living, I think how lucky I am that this is what I chose to do with my life. When it comes to thinking outside the box, I think it's really important for every artist to make sure that they stay true to what they believe is going to represent them. You know, I know that there's a lot of dance, there's a lot of choreography, there's a lot of invention. It's important to try not to just be different, but to speak to what speaks to you. And if you can find a way with grace in the moments to make it even more personalized so that it really doesn't resemble anything else, then that's great. You know, being able to reinvent the wheel in art is a true gift. What's coming up this next year is a kind of a re-exploration of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. I've created to it twice. I've made a couple little stories to it. I have this interesting idea of a male-male couple being represented in some way in ballet, not distastefully, not in a way that really represents a complete male-male relationship, but more so just like a partnering situation in which a story is based around. And how I can kind of influence Rhapsody in Blue's wonderful tracks that just kind of go all over the place into one storyline that makes some sort of cohesive, cheeky sense to this male-male relationship, which I imagine is kind of the cortex of the title of Rhapsody in Blue. I always knew that when I created this piece that it was never really about blue. It was Rhapsody in New York. It's about New York. It's about a specific feeling of New York energy. And I wanted to take that and turn it into something that would kind of have a relevance to today's world in the way that you would see the art, hear the music, and understand some sort of situation that would play out in front of you seamlessly, that you felt was always in the writing of the music itself, which of course wasn't. You know, it isn't. It's really a collection of melodies that Gershwin kind of put together for his first orchestration to play back in the 1920s and 30s. But, you know, I wanted to put something together with it that would make relevance of the title, which I think is just a really beautiful title, Rhapsody in Blue. You know, what an understanding, especially with the color blue, you know, you have something so innately connected to men, blue and pink. You know, the first thing you hear when you see as a baby is this blue. You got this pink. You got this shroud of expectance, something that is just like blue. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. But at the same time, to see it blue in another way, to be a light blue, to be a dark blue, to be a green blue, to be something, you know, that isn't run of the mill, that isn't exactly what's expected. So that's what I really wanted to do with Gershwin, because it is so excellent already, because it has so much with it already, because it has so much excellence. To see it in a completely different, flipped way that just makes you hear it differently, see it, smell it, sense it completely differently for the first time. I think as an artist, outside the box is about creating a way for you to reinvent language, reinvent the wheel, reinvent a way to look at something that you've been using every single day into a way that you've never seen it before.